Hey fellow gliders, welcome back. This is Robert Petito, and in this video we're going to take a look at one of the easiest ways to add instant interactivity and user engagement into your app, and that's by leveraging the comments component. Now, if you've been building with Glide for a while, you know that the comments component has been around. However, if you haven't taken a look at it since Glide Classic apps, that means that you're missing the fact that the Glide comments component can also be a chat component. So yes, we now have native chat component in Glide. However, the comments component in this version of Glide is a bit more robust, which means we need to take a step back and take a moment to plan and prep this component and its associated table prior to implementing. So we do have a few goals. We're first going to set up our tables, then we're going to set up the component itself. We'll take a look at how to trigger any actions upon a new message, for example, push notifications or AI actions. And if you stay to the end of the video, you'll learn a bonus feature, which is how to insert images into chat messages, even though Glide has not yet built this functionality natively. So make sure you stay all the way to the end so you don't miss a thing. So hopefully you're excited to get started on setting up this chat component. Let's get going. So I have a brand new app that I just set up. This is going to be an app where I'm going to be managing projects and clients. So I have clients have projects, and I can manage both those things. So my data tables, I have a list of users, people who can sign into the app, let's say. I have my list of clients and their associated projects. I have a table of projects and just some basic information like date created and their status. And now what I would like is to add some interactivity to the app. The first thing will be to add comments to each project. So then that way, both the client themselves as well as the admin can insert comments that pertain to that project. The next thing I would like to do is add in some in-app chat with each client. So that way the client can sign in and perhaps chat with myself, or I can go in and chat with one of my clients and so forth. Now, before we begin, it's imperative to know that the comments component is really just a fancy style of a collection. What I mean by collection is that if I were to add in a brand new component, we see that I can choose from one of these available collections. A collection just displays a table's worth of records or a relation worth of records. And you can display it as a list of cards or a list or a checklist. You can also format it as a calendar or a Kanban. You can also format a collection as a comments or a chat component. Now, the comments component and the chat component are really the exact same component. We'll take a look at that when we go to set it up for the first time. But just so you know that all we need to do is set up a data table for our comments, and then we can display those comments in the comments collection. All right, let's head back to our data table. Now, each message of our comment needs to be on its own row. So for that reason, I typically create a brand new table, and I usually call it like comments or messages or something of that nature. It's also crucial to know the hierarchy of your chat. So we have these messages that I'm going to be placing inside of this comments table. But what am I commenting on? Am I commenting on the user? Am I commenting on the project? Is it just some sort of global commenting table where there is no hierarchy, right? So in our case, we're going to have projects, and those projects are going to have comments. So we are going to want to make sure that we retain that relation when we go to set up our comments table. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our comments table, and we see that I haven't even set it up yet. All it has is the word name in it, which is what you get when you set up a default table for the first time. All right, so some of the columns that we'll need here, I'm actually going to convert this name column into an ID column. And what this is going to be is the project ID that gets referenced when I comment on a particular project. That way I can relate the project to its comments. That also means that in my projects table, I need a project ID. So let's go ahead and add in a row ID to this table. Type will be row ID and save. All right, so now whenever I add in a new message, I'm going to take this row ID for whatever project I am on and send it to my comments ID column. The next column will be a timestamp column because we want to know when the comment was made. If you think about your iPhone's messages app, right? You have the user, you have when it was done, you have the comment itself, right? These are all elements that we're going to add as columns to this table. So we're going to add a timestamp column. Type will be a date and time column. Okay, next we need to know who left the message. So for this, we're actually going to add in a few columns. The first one is we're going to add in an owner column. And the type here is going to be an email column. And we'll show you why in a minute. Okay, next we're going to need to know the name of the person. So I'm going to add in the user name, which is text, and save. Okay, next we're going to add in the user photo, which will be an image column. So basic image, and save. We need the message itself. I'll just call it content. Save. And then if there's anything else that you would like to add as part of a message, you can add that as additional columns here. Now these 6 are probably all you would need to know in order to get yourself set up. But maybe you want to pass along some additional information whenever a new message is taking place. You can add additional columns for that and do that then. Okay, the next thing we want to do is figure out how we want to set up our comments component. Remember, our comments component is a collection, and a collection can just be a list of items from a table. So I can point the collection to a table. I can also point the collection to a relation, which makes more sense when you have a hierarchy of, in our case, projects to comments. So back in our projects table, I'm going to create a multiple relation from the project line to its comments. So I'm going to add in a new relation or a new column. We'll call it related or rel comments. Type will be a relation column. And I'm going to match the row ID of our project to the comments ID field. And since there might be more than one comment per project, I'm going to match multiple and hit save. All right, let's go ahead and set up our comments component. All right, so in our layout, I'm going to navigate to where I want our comments to occur. In this case, it's going to be on the projects table. And here I can select either the comments or the chat. Again, they're both the exact same component. One is just defaulted to one style versus the other. So I'm going to choose just comments for now. We see that because I've already created that relation, it picked it up as the source. Otherwise, I'd have to select it from source relation to comments. Okay. And again, here you can see that the style is defaulting to comments. But if I wanted to change it up and switch it up to be a chat-like style, then I can just select chat rather than comments. The difference is with comments, everybody's equal. Right, so the layout is very consistent. It doesn't matter who is speaking. It's always going to be a very uniform look. Whereas chat, just like you have in your messages app, it's going to have bubbles that bounce between one side and the other side depending upon who's speaking. So if I'm just making comments on a project, I'm going to leave it as the comments style. All right, at the top here, we can configure a couple of things. The title, so here we can name it comments. And then the save text. Save text means the message that you're saving when you go to type something in. So for our save text, we don't want to write to the ID column. We want to write that to the content column. So save text, again, is the message itself. So what's unique about the comments component and the comments collection, rather than all of these other collections, is that it has a built-in input. All of these other collections only have output, right? It's only displaying the information, where the comments component is also receiving information in order to display it underneath. All right, so for that reason, underneath our style, we actually have two different sections. We have a display data and a save data. The display data is what actually gets displayed in the collection itself. The save data is what you're writing to the table in order for it to be displayed. So think of the save data as the form fields and the display data as just the actual fields that you're displaying as part of the collection. All right, so for our display data, the text itself, like what the message is, okay, this is going to be our content. So again, where save text is content, and that same vernacular text is content. Timestamp, I'm lining up with the timestamp. Author photo and author name, I have user photo and username. So that's why I deliberately added those two fields to our data table. So our display data is set up correctly. Now the save data, this is where we need to make sure that we're configuring the form fields when they go to submit the comment. Now we've already set up that the save text is the content field. All right, so that means that we don't have the content field as available column to configure in the save data, but we can configure all the rest of it. So the timestamp here will be the current date and time. Our ID will be the actual row ID of the project we're in. The owner will be the person who is signed into the app. So the owner will be the app's user's email. The username will be the person who is signed in. So that would be the user profile name. And user photo will be the user profile photo. Okay, so again, the save data is like a form field where we're grabbing the current user's information. And the display data is where we're displaying the data that gets written to the comments table. We have some additional options underneath here. If you wanted to limit how many comments you can see at any one time, you can configure this. If you want to configure what gets displayed here, so as you can see, it says nothing yet, or you can say something here like add a comment, right? And it gets displayed down here, completely up to you. You can add a page size if you so choose. The button text, so this is where it says comment, or I could say something like send instead. Okay, so you can configure what this button text says. There's an after submit action, which we'll get to in just a moment. And then we also have some additional options at the top. So just like any other collection, we have the ability to set the visibility condition on this comments component. So maybe we only want admins to leave comments. Okay, we can turn off the comments component altogether for anybody who's not an admin. Or we can filter data. Maybe we're only filtering comments that have passed profanity check or something, right? So if I were to have some logic in the data editor there, I could filter comments where they've been approved or something, right? We can sort the comments. Typically, you want to sort by sheet order or by a timestamp. You typically want to sort your comments by any other means besides that. You can show a search bar if you want to. So if you want to search through comments, you can. I'm going to leave that off for now. You can also add in-app filters. So if you want to, show all of the comments that belong to a particular person, you can do that too. Or if you want to categorize the comments, you can do a filter by category. I'm going to leave that off for now as well. And lastly here under the actions, we have two different types. We have the inline actions, which is just the ability to add a comment or not add a comment. So if I turn this off, you'll see that comments are now restricted and nobody can write new comments to the comment collection. You can leave this on and then also add a condition as well. Maybe you're setting a cutoff date, right? Where anything, you're allowing comments anytime before the due date of the project, right? Or maybe you're only allowing comments if the project is not complete, right? So I could add a condition here to allow when the project status doesn't include complete, right? So you see here that for this project, I can write something, but if I go to my completed projects, I can't write anything. Right? So again, you can play around with that functionality to get the comments component working the way you'd like. All right, moment of truth. Let's leave a comment. So I'm going to write something. All right, here's my first comment. I hit send. All right, and we see that my comment gets left right underneath here. Right, here's my first comment with the name, and we see that the timestamp is in a relative form, which means that as minutes go by, you'll see like 1 minute ago, 2 minutes ago, and so forth. All right, so here's another one. All right, and let's say Alma comes in and she wants to comment something. Right, and so you see that everybody's created equal in this comment component. Right, the display looks exactly the same, it's just in linear format. Another cool trick about the comments component messages is that they can actually be formatted in rich text or HTML. So if I were to add in a comment that said, B, hello, and then close bold tag, and then say normal text, and send, we see that the hello has been bolded, right? It can also support multiple lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, and so forth. Right. Now, one thing you might notice is that as the comments are added to our collection, the write something box goes away. It's like hidden above the fold there, right, as they want to scroll down. So often what I'll do is I'll reverse the comment thread, so that way new comments are always at the top. So to do that, we would go Options, Sort by Sheet Order in reverse order, like that. So that way as I do a new comment, the newest is always at the top. So that way I don't need to scroll down to see the newest and thus lose the box at the top. So that's one way to do it. The other way to allow the box to always be displayed, regardless of sheet order, if I were to set this back, would be to put the comments component on its own screen. When the comments component is on its own screen, then it actually takes on its own interface. Let me show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this comments component. I'm going to add in a button. I'll name the button Leave a Comment. And the action on this will be to actually show a brand new screen for this item. And the target will be either a slide in or an overlay. And so now when I push the button, I get my own screen. I'm going to delete all of the components on this screen and then paste in my comments component. So now that I've done this, you'll see that the write something box is at the bottom of the screen and it's sticky. It kind of stays down there. This is one of the few times in Glide where you actually get a sticky component and it ignores anything else that's going on. So you can scroll around and this write something box will stay put. So now when I leave a comment, it automatically forwards me to the bottom of the list and now I can write something new. Right? And it adds it to the bottom. If I were to go back a screen and go back into it again, we see that it's still at the bottom of our screen. And this works just the same if I were in desktop mode. So it stayed there at the bottom of the screen. And again, the only way you get this is if the comments component is the only component on the screen, which is why I only do this on a new screen, which is an overlay or a slide in, because then it has the built-in close and back button. If I add in any other component, even like a breadcrumbs component, we see that it messes up the interface and now my write something box is back at the top of the screen, which I don't want. Okay, so if you are very particular and you think like I have to have that sticky entry box, then that's the way to do it. You just put the comments component on its own screen. The next scenario is creating a chat between two people. So let's say I want to have a chat between myself and Alma. That means at any point in time, I want to be able to dive into that person and have a chat that's just between me and that person. That means the chat component needs to know that the only messages that it should take a look at is this person and myself. What's tricky about that is that I should see the same chat when I'm viewing Alma's screen as when she is seeing my screen, right? So that means we need to take a look at a generic table of chat messages and then filter them by who is involved in that chat. So for our purposes, we're going to go ahead into our data section and we'll just duplicate our comments table and we'll call this user chat. Okay, we're going to clear the data that's currently in here. And the only additional column that we'll need is a second owners column. So this owner column will be who wrote the message, but the other owner column will be who has access to the message besides the person who spoke. So this works really well if you want a private one-on-one chat. So I'm going to go ahead and add a column to the right, and we're going to call this owner 2. You can also call this as like maybe recipient. And again, this will be an email column. And this could be sender, the person who actually sent the message. And in order to make it private, we're going to make both of these row owners. So I'm going to add a row owner to the sender and a row owner to the recipient. All right, let's go ahead and delete any blank rows. All right, in our layout, we're going to go ahead and add a chat component, which again is the same thing as the comments component, except that it has defaulted to chat here. Our source of our comments component is going to be just the user chat table generically, right? I don't have any relations going here. The row owners is going to allow us to filter the rows that we need as part of this table. So we'll just choose user chat. Title can be chat, fine. The save text, again, is going to be the content. Okay. The text is going to be the content for display. The timestamp is timestamp, photo, name. Author email is the new one. So if we see that in the comment style, we didn't have to choose author email, but in the chat we do. And that's because it needs to know who the speaker is email-wise in order to compare it to who signed into the app, in order to know where the message should be placed in that component. It should be on the left-hand side or the right-hand side based upon who signed into the app. So the author email here is going to be the sender email. Next, under the save data, the ID we're going to leave blank. This doesn't have an ID column on this case. Timestamp will be the current date and time. Sender is the app's user email like before. Username like before was the user profile name. Same thing, user photo is user profile photo. The difference one is the recipient. In this case, we're going to use the email address of the screen we're currently on. In this case, it's Alma's. All right. So now when I chat with Alma, and I'm going to say, hey, Alma, right? You see that I'm on the right-hand side and I'm chatting with Alma. But if Alma views this chat, she'll see the message on the other side with my photo to let me know that I had just chatted with her. See the difference there? All right. Now, Alma probably shouldn't see a chat on her own profile, right? So in this case, we can probably take this comments component and set a visibility condition on it to only show up when the email address of the screen that we're on is not the signed in user. All right, so because I'm signed in as me right now, I'm seeing the chat component. But if we were to sign in as Alma, she wouldn't see the component. But if she were to visit my profile, then she would see the chat as expected. All right, so then Alma can continue the chat from her side. Right? And then back, if I were in the app, I would be viewing Alma's side, and I could see the chat as expected here. Now, one thing to know, just like before, is that the text entry gets pushed down as the chat is added to, and that's because the comments component isn't the only component on the screen. Now, the last thing we want to do here is be able to add a filter to this chat because we don't want it to display everybody's. For example, if I were to go into Hugo's details screen, we see that we still see Alma's chat here, right? Which we don't want. So like, I really want, if I were to say, hey, Hugo, right? Hey, Hugo should be for Hugo's chat, not with Alma's chat. So we need to add in a filter, and this filter should be where the sender is the screen's email, right? Or where the recipient is the screen's email, like so. All right, so now we have Hugo lined up with Hugo, and we have Alma lined up with Alma. All right, if I'm Alma, I shouldn't see anything for Hugo, but I should see something for Bob. There we go. Now, what's kind of cool about this chat or comment component is that when you write something and you send it, it has that kind of built-in action already that's going to add the new message to its own row in the comments table and then display it automatically in this component. In addition to that, we also get the ability to have an after submit action. You also see this on submit action or after submit action with form screens and edit screens and form containers. So because this comments component is like a form container, we also get this submit action here as well. So what's kind of cool is that you can actually trigger an action whenever a new message is sent. So you might want to set up this as push notifications, and as long as you've set up that. I think I did in my, maybe I didn't, but there would be an option here for send push notification, and then your user can get a push notification. The other action could be to determine something with AI. Maybe you want to get some sort of sentiment or see, hey, does this comment have profanity in it, or is it something that needs to be flagged? Maybe you want to flag anything that's got profanity or vulgarity or something with violence or something like that, and you don't want to show those comments in the chat. Here's something you can do with that. So in our data section here, under our user chat, I'm going to add a new column here for is flagged, like so. And I'm going to write in an AI action to mark this as true or false based upon whether this comment is flagged. So I'm going to hit save. So in that after submit action, I'm going to create a new action here, and we're going to call this flag message. And in addition to the show notification, we're going to leverage some Glide AI, and it'll be a text to Boolean, which means it's going to be true or false. Okay, instructions. Does this message contain any vulgarity or profanity? The input will be, again, the content, and the result will be that is flagged true or false. Done. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write something pleasant. I love puppies. All right. And we see that I love puppies was not flagged. Now, maybe what we want to do is take a look at the content, and if it does contain vulgarity, we'll create some sort of default message that says cannot display this message due to inappropriateness. So we're going to say if vulgar message or content. Let's be consistent with our verbiage here. All right, computed if then else. If is flagged is checked, then this message was flagged. Else will display the content. All right, I'm going to go ahead and write something vulgar. I'll also blur it out so that way if we have any sensitive viewers here that you don't get offended. Okay, look at that. We see that the message was flagged because I wrote something vulgar, just like so, right? So that's kind of cool. If we want to be really clever, what we could do as part of our action is after this text Boolean, we could wait for a condition, and we're going to wait to see if flagged is checked. And then if it is checked, so this should only take a few seconds or so, we'll say 5 seconds, we could actually have it delete the row right there. Let's see if this works. So again, I'm going to blur out anything for our sensitive viewers. All right, so it deleted immediately. You saw that it kind of flashed up and flashed down. Up to you. But again, you can see that this after submit action works really, really nicely after the chat message was sent. And so as you can see, I'm using a little bit of AI after a message was sent in order to check for the message content. But there's so much more you can do with AI and sending an AI action after submitting a chat message. For example, you can submit a message and then have it call upon an AI chatbot to respond to your message and add a new row to the chat as if it were the chatbot. So in this case, I have a brand new chat, and what happens is the moment I type something, AI analyzes it, gives a response, and adds a new row to my chat table, but the response of the AI becomes the content of the new row and thus shows up as part of the chat. So, can you help me? Right? So that can you help me, the response was listed here as part of the action. And then the next action was to generate a new row where that response becomes the content. So that way it actually shows up in the chat. So yeah, you can create your own AI chatbot just using the after submit action of the chat component and calling upon Glide AI or ChatGPT, depending upon which integration you'd like to offer. Now, you might notice that inside of this text entry, the only thing we can do here is type text. There's no ability to add images to our messages yet. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you stuck around to this point, I'm going to show you a hack on how you can allow your users to actually insert images into the messages. And here's how you do that. So what you can do is in the data section here, for our user chat, or for any of these here, we're going to add in a new column, and we're going to call this image. We can make it an image field. That's fine. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and format this image and the content into HTML. Because remember, as I mentioned before, is that the chat message can actually read HTML. So if we format this image as HTML and concatenate it along with the content, then we can display both in the chat message. All right, so here's how we can do that. I'm going to go ahead and add in a new column here, and we'll just make it a template column, and we'll call this content plus image. And this will be a template column. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say 1, which is the content, and then 2, which is going to be the image URL of our image. But we're going to format the image in HTML here. So we're going to go ahead and say img, which is the image tag in HTML, src equals, and then we'll put this in quotes like so. And then we can define the width as well. So I like to make my images a little bit smaller. So we'll say, we'll make sure it fits we'll fit the frame here. So we'll say width equals, I don't know, 100%. We'll make it a little bit smaller just to be safe. We'll do 90%. And then close tag, like so. All right, we're going to add some replacements, 1 and 2. 1 is the content, 2 is the image. And let's go ahead and put in a dummy image here. We should see that the content plus image now has the HTML along with the message. And if we display this content plus image as the display text in the component, right? If I go back to my comments component here and change the display text to be the content plus image, we now see that the image appears directly in the message. Now, that begs the question, how will the user be able to put the image in, because they're not going to have access to the data table in order to upload the image. So what we need to be able to do here is give them the option to add an image. So under the actions section here, we can add a collection item action, and we can say add image, and this can be maybe a show edit screen for this item, and maybe they're only allowed to do that for their own images. So we should add a condition on here to only be allowed when the person who sent the image is the signed-in user, right? So now they can go in and add an image, and we don't need all of this stuff here. We'll just go ahead and only allow the image picker, and the image picker can only go to the image here. And so now we can say, upload an image. So if they were to upload an image, let's say they uploaded an image of whatever this happens to be, Jimmy Fallon. Why not? We hit submit, and now it's added Jimmy Fallon to that message as part of the HTML. All right. Now, the last thing here is that you might notice there's some blank space for any message that doesn't have an image. So maybe we want something conditional then that we're displaying. So back in our comments, our user chat, we'll add in, we'll call this if content, and we'll check to see if they've uploaded an image. So if the image is empty, so they did not upload an image, then we'll just display the content. Otherwise, we'll display the content and the image, like that with the HTML. And then if we display that if then else in the text, then we should see that bottom margin go away, like so. So hopefully you can see the power of the comment or chat component and how you can leverage it in order to really boost user engagement. Hopefully the complexity of it was explained in this video and you feel much more confident in setting it up for yourself in a variety of ways. If you have any questions at all about what I did, feel free to leave a comment below. You can also reach out to me at Twitter @rpetito. And as always, thanks for watching.